Hello and welcome. My name is Sharon and this is Trio.of.Witches Tarot. In this video, I wanted to talk about how to get started in tarot, how I got started in tarot, some of maybe the missteps that I took in wanting to learn everything all at once, and kind of the overwhelm I felt. And so if you are a tarot beginner and you don't know where to start and you're feeling overwhelmed, or maybe not, maybe this video is for you. So let's get started. So I have in front of me a lot of books that I got on different things about tarot, and when I started out, I just kind of dove right in and saw a lot of videos where people were talking about the Kabbalah and the Tree of Life and astrology and the correspondences and the Hebrew alphabet, and I didn't know what any of this stuff was. And I was overwhelmed and thought I had to learn all these things. I mean, I knew I'm a Gemini, and that was the end of my understanding of astrology, and I had never heard of this Tree of Life before. And then there was the Thoth, and then there's the Marseille and the RWS, and then there's alchemy and hermeticism and magic, and I really just wanted to know how to read tarot cards so I could give people tarot readings at Halloween. And then there was this whole thing about that you had to cleanse your decks and all of these rituals you had to perform before you could even use your cards. And so, yeah, I feel your pain if you're feeling that pain. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to talk about is this, one of the shoulds that you're going to hear or have heard about how you need to cleanse your deck and use crystals and sage or incense and put it out in a full moon with a crystal in a bowl of moon water, and dance naked under the moonlight around your deck 10 times in a circle and then 10 times backwards or whatever. You don't have to do any of that. And some of these practices that people have videos out about, they no longer practice. And I wanted to talk about one of them in particular, which I find particularly egregious. And that is white sage. I have this because it was gifted to me. I've never used it. And I keep it because I respect the magic that the Native Americans ascribe to this. And I don't use it to cleanse decks because I'm not Native American. I couldn't be more white. And even if I was, they wouldn't, as far as I understand from the research I've done, they wouldn't use white sage to cleanse a tarot deck. White sage was reserved for when they needed very, very strong magic for things like healing the sick, or for a death ritual, or things of great importance. So it's disrespectful in the least, and cultural appropriation and the worst. So, if this is something that you have been doing, don't feel guilty about it. If it's something that is already a part of your practice because you've been initiated into something that does that, then that's great. But I think my point is that if you're going to start using one of these practices, do a little research first, find out where it came from, because the whole thing with white sage, there's other problems with it. People are going out and harvesting it like crazy. The sourcing of it is questionable. And, I grow a lot of things in my garden that I could use for cleansing my decks. I have lavender. I do have sage growing, many, many varieties of sage. So you don't need to engage in this practice. You don't need to be a part of all of the stores that are selling this en masse. I have this, and I respect the sacredness of it. The next thing is crystals. So I have this, I think it's selenium. I don't even know. I'm not really into crystals that much. I already had it. Found it like in a secondhand store. I thought it was cool. When people talk about, you need to put it on there, it needs to be on there for 24 hours and out in the full moon. I tried that a couple times, and I'm like, okay, the deck doesn't feel any different to me than it did when I took it out of the box. So that's not necessary. I also don't collect crystals. Again, the same sourcing issue. I think that I don't know if they're ethically sourced, what even ethically sourced means. There is no definition. No one's enforcing ethically sourced. So this was ethically sourced. I found it on the beach in Alaska, and it's just a rock, but it spoke to me, and it's meaningful to me. So I use this when I feel like I need to charge my deck, or it's on my altar and it's a part of my practice. It's more meaningful to me than this that I found in a secondhand store. So, you need to do what you need to do to feel connected to your deck, whatever that is. When I get a deck, I play with it a lot. I put it out of order, and I shuffle it, and I draw cards, and I ask questions of it, and I spend a good day or two just doing that with the deck. I don't do any deep readings with it, but I have it, I'm watching TV and I play with it, or I'm, just sitting outside having my coffee. That's how I connect with my deck. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about is research and learning and all of the different systems and the overwhelm that I felt there. So a lot of the videos I saw, and maybe I got in too deep with, the people. They're great videos and they're great people, but I jumped into the deep end right away. So I started with this book by Paul Foster Case, and he was part of Golden Dawn, and it had all this stuff about all of these things that you had to do to understand the tarot, and didn't even mention numerology earlier. This whole thing on numerology, and you had to, where is it? You had to say this whole thing every day, and then you had to spend a week on each card, and all of these crazy meanings. And yes, the tarot, the colors and all of the choices, and those things are meaningful, but it was a lot, and I was overwhelmed, and I don't even think I ever even got to the first card. I never even got to the Fool. It was like so esoteric and kind of crazy, and all of this stuff about Egyptians, and none of it made sense to me. I'm just like, as far as I understood, the Egyptians had like zero to do with the tarot and all of this mysticism wasn't meaningful to me because that's not where I was coming from with tarot. It's not something I know anything about. And so I have this book still because I'd like to read it someday maybe and just it's part of the history of tarot, but it wasn't helpful in the beginning of my journey. And then there's the Thoth Tarot. And again, it's part of the Golden Dawn. Again, super, super esoteric. This is a secondhand book, so it has notes in it, but I don't care. But there's all this symbology, and the cards were not meaningful to me. And it was just, again, like, too much. It was not helpful in the beginning of my journey. So, those are two that, I'm not recommending you start with those. I'm also not dissing them. And then there's, I discovered Robert M. Place, and he talks about alchemy and hermeticism, and he has this giant book, which is amazing. But again, I was overwhelmed by this in the beginning. So, where do you start as far as books? I highly recommend this book by Robert M. Place, The Tarot, History, Symbolism, and Divination. It's highly readable, it's not too thick, and it has a lot of great information about the history of tarot, and then a lot of great information about how to read tarot in the back. And he talks about the RWS tarot, which is the tarot that I ended up landing on to learn. So, number one book, I think, if you are getting started out and you want to understand the history of tarot without all of this mystical, esoteric gobbledygook that has been piled on top of it. Whatever. This one, the Tarot Bible. This is a great book for referencing and understanding the meanings of each card. This is a great little guidebook. Has a lot of information on different kinds of spreads and different kinds of questions, and I highly recommend this book when you're getting started out. Rachel Pollack. This is a great book too, on understanding the background and the meaning of each card. Again, in the RWS, the Robert M. Place book and this book may touch. I'm pretty sure the Robert M. Place book does. This one talks somewhat about the Marseille because it is the root of a lot of tarot. So this may touch on it a little bit as well, but sticks mainly to RWS. This book, the Tarot Workbook, I don't use it as a workbook. It does have exercises in it, but I use it as a guidebook. I love that it has the description, again, is RWS, the description, a spiritual interpretation in a tarot spread, what it means, a reverse meaning, and a self-development lesson, which is just questions that you can ask yourself if you get that card in a reading. I use this book a lot. I love this book. So there's that. Also this one is a great beginner one. It's a nice compact little guidebook if you wanted to carry around a guidebook. The little white book that comes with this little white book that comes with the RWS Tarot is kind of terrible. I mean, you could, if you knew you had memorized everything and you use this just kind of like jog your memory, maybe it's helpful. I kind of hate it. This is a good little book. So I also highly recommend this one if you're just starting out. So I think, yeah, so here's another one about the Tree of Life, which I'm going to touch on when I start talking about decks. So I think that's enough said for books at this point. Okay, so at this point, let's talk about tarot systems, because that was another point where I had overwhelm. So we have I've already talked about the RWS. When I started out, I saw a lot of people talking a lot about the Marielle Tarot, and it is amazing. It shakes me to my core when I use it, but it was a lot when I started out, and this talks a lot about a lot of mystical and astrological correspondences for the cards. And what's a correspondence is just that the card has associations with, there's the earth and water and air and fire to start with, and then there is astrological symbols, and people talk about the deacons, which I know barely anything about. And then there's the Tree of Life and all of these other things. And so this deck really gets kind of deep into that. But it's very cool, and the artwork is amazing. And so, I started out with that, and I was kind of overwhelmed by it. And then I saw some videos where someone was talking about this deck, the Tarot of the Holy Light. And all of the correspondences, get these books out of the way, all of the correspondences in this deck, and how amazing it was. And don't get me wrong, it is, but it's crazy. Crazy and super deep, and there's so much going on. It's got the astrological symbols and stuff about the Tree of Life and stuff. I have no idea what all this stuff is, even. I haven't even used this deck because, not because I don't like it, but because I'm still overwhelmed by it. I still don't know all this stuff. I haven't read this book that is the companion to it yet. I'm just not there yet. So again, I jumped in the deep end with this and still was lost. Still didn't know, how am I ever going to learn all this stuff? How am I ever going to understand? This is going to take forever. And then I thought, well, I heard about this. Where is my copy of this deck? Here it is. Pile. The Tarot of the Spirit. And this is, this one talks a lot about the Tree of Life. And I thought, well, I'll learn the Tree of Life from this. I mean, it even has this little card, this transparent thing. You probably can't see it very well. Let's put it on top of a card here. And you could see where any card is on the Tree of Life. And here's one that actually has Tree of Life on it. And I still didn't understand the Tree of Life. And is it upside down? No. I still didn't understand the Tree of Life. I was still confused and overwhelmed, and still thought, I'm never going to understand tarot if I have to learn all this stuff. I haven't read this book yet. I started to read it, and I felt this deck is cool, but it's weird in the way weird. Maybe weird's not a great word. It's esoteric in the way that the Thoth Tarot is for me, where these images, while they're cool, weren't something that was ever going to help me learn how to read tarot. So, again, I'm not saying this is a bad deck. I'm not saying you shouldn't get this deck. I'm not saying any of those things. I'm just saying it wasn't the place to start for me. I can't get that together. It's all right. And then I had heard at the same time that I got the Tarot of the Holy Light, I heard about this Youth's Picard Tarot. I don't have the deck in here. I just have the box to demonstrate to you. This, people talked about, oh, it's this historical deck. It's so meaningful. You need to get it. It's how you need to learn. You need to understand it. And it didn't resonate. I turned this into something else, which I will talk about in a little bit. So again, another deck that was just like, this is not helpful to learn. And I got, in addition to the Robert M. Place books, I got the Robert M. Place decks. These, especially the Sevenfold Mystery, is a great learning deck. Although it's not, I wouldn't call it a starter deck. But it's like the next level. It's like middle school. And these are great decks. So you might want to look into these and see if they work for you, if you understand them yet. I got a Thoth deck. I thought, well, everybody keeps talking about how you need to learn the Thoth. And I didn't like, even though people are always talking about the greenie, at this point I had realized that I didn't need to, just because people said that, oh, you have to have this deck because it's, significant and, it's the one, that didn't mean it was the one for me. So then I discovered this deck called the Tabula Mundi, which is a Thoth-based deck, but the artwork is amazing. The artwork spoke to me in a way that a lot of decks up to that point hadn't. I still don't understand. I haven't read the book on the Thoth system yet. I haven't read the book that comes with this, Liber M something. I'm going to leave links below on all this stuff, so don't try to memorize it or take notes right now. I just thought this was amazing, and it was meaningful to me without understanding all of the mystical, alchemical, numerological, tree of life, Hebrew letters, astrology, any of it. I even got, there's a little expansion pack for the deacons. I didn't even know what the deacons were at the time when I ordered this, but I thought, well, if I'm ordering this deck, and shipping was not entirely insignificant, that it wasn't that much more. There we go, Tree of Life. I'll just get it in addition because the cards are really cool, and someday I'm probably going to want to learn what this stuff is. So there's the little card, Tabula Mundi. I'll just get it in addition so that I have it. I haven't really used this deck yet, even though I really like it. The backs, I know a lot of people talk about how awesome these backs kind of are ugly. Sorry. And a lot. That's a lot. But this is a very cool deck. And when I do go to learn the Thoth, this is the deck I'm going to use. Okay, I'm back. So, the Margaret Peterson. I am right now studying this, following along with sadhana at Integrative Healing. I'll share channels below too. And I had got this deck in the beginning because people raved and raved about it in videos that I saw. And while the art is really cool, I want to tell them what the heck is the Daughter of Cups? I never even heard of daughters before, and fathers, and how is this going to help me learn the Six of Cups? Like, it's cool art, and it's very meditative, and they're cool for altar cards, but I didn't know. What's the feathers? I heard of swords. I'd never heard of feathers. I'm not dissing this deck. I'm just saying this was definitely not the way to start to learn the meanings of the cards. So this is a deck I'm only just learning right now. And it is very cool. But again, it was diving into the deep end. And I had never even seen water before. Then there was, well, no. And I had seen, let's talk about this one. People talk about the Osho Zen Tarot. Lisa Pepez at Supportive Tarot. This was her first deck and she raves about it. I got it and I tried to use it and it means zero to me. So, again, that was another flavor of tarot that I tried that wasn't helpful in learning for me. And in fact, I'm not even going to be keeping this deck because it's just not for me. So all of that rambling about what not to do. What do you do? Sorry, hit that. What do you do? Where do you start? How the heck are you ever going to learn tarot if there's so many systems and ideas and so many things you have to learn and all of that? Well, you don't have to learn. Again, there is no must. You don't have to learn anything. I think the only have to is that you have to find a deck that you can learn from. So how do you do that? Well, you'll see a lot of people talk about the Smith-Waite Centennial Edition. And they're not wrong. This is a great learner deck, I think. I mean, there's many different iterations of the RWS, the Smith-Waite, the Coleman-Smith, the Rider-Waite. They're all the same deck. But because the art is copyright free, you are going to see this all over the place. I just like, this one is by US Games Systems. I just happen to land on this one because I like the cardstock. I like the colors in it. You know, people play with all the different shades of colors in it. This is not my favorite deck. In fact, I don't use this for readings, but I used it for learning. And when I'm reading from another deck and I'm kind of struggling with what that deck's representation of any given card is, I go back in my head to what is it in this deck. So there are the correspondences in this deck that if you so choose, at any point in time, move these other way because of the lighting, that you want to learn, you can, but you don't need to. I mean, there's some cards where you're like, okay, well, there's 8 sticks. What the hell does that mean? So then you go back to one of the guidebooks, you look it up, you see what is the significance of this. This is going to be the 8 of Wands in pretty much all decks in some iteration. So yeah, I mean, when you start out, you're like, okay, this guy's looking at a bush with some coins on it. What the hell does that mean? But you can look it up, and these, once you understand them, it makes sense. So I highly, highly, highly recommend that you find a copy of the Smith-Waite RWS, whatever they call it, and start there, because these are fully illustrated pips. You're going to hear a lot of talk about pips, and you're going to be like, what the heck is a pip? I forget what it even stands for. These are fully illustrated. So they have a scene, they have people doing something in them, so that it's not just 7 swords. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute with when I talk about the Marseille decks. So there's that. So then you learn that. And you're like, okay, so now what? So then there are many modern, this is the Light Seers Tarot by Chris Ann, and I love this deck. Really, really love it. I use this a lot. So this is, there's a lot of modern interpretations of the RWS that are easier to place yourself in, to relate to, but it's still the same things. You know, the Chariot is the Chariot, the 6 of Wands, it's the 6 of, let's see if I can find it real quick. Doo-doo-doo. Of course, it's taking me forever to find it. And it's going to be all the way at the end of the deck, isn't it? Okay, there it is. So here you have a guy celebrating some sort of a victory, and here you have a girl celebrating a victory, right, of some sort. She maybe performed a concert, whatever. So you don't have 6 wands in this one. You have 6 wands in this one, but you really only need the one, right? So this is, I highly recommend this. Maybe you, I mean, you could just skip over the RWS entirely if you wanted to and go straight to one of the more modern interpretations of it, because they are incredibly similar. So that's another deck where I'd say, yeah, start here. I mean, there's others. I can't think of them off the top of my head because I don't have them. Next World Tarot. There's some, you're going to hear a lot of talk about inclusivity. There's a lot that have people, you know, represented in wheelchairs and different skin colors, different body types. I think the Light Seers does a really, really, really good job of covering a lot of that, not all of it. I don't know that there would ever be any one deck that could cohesively do all of that, but I'm not an artist, so maybe there is one that resonates for you that includes all of those things. You just need to find one that's meaningful to you. Another deck This is the linen edition of the Gentle Tarot. This is another great deck for, I think some people, you're going to hear talk about too, about ancestor work and path working and all of these other things. Don't worry about all that right now. If you're just starting out, just worry about finding a deck that you can learn the meanings of. This one is a little bit further away. It has animals and some of the suits are renamed, but it's not so far away that it's overwhelming and confusing. And I love this deck. So if you wanted to get something that had some animals in it and some people in, represented a little differently, this is a great deck. Okay, so next let's talk about pip decks. What the heck is a pip deck? Because in reality, my understanding is that all of the minors from the ace to the 10 in each suit are pips. So this is the Pagan Otherworlds by Lucy. When people talk about a pip deck, they're talking about a specific style of, so this is the guidebook, which is really nice and explains, these are like almost semi-illustrated pips. But when they talk about a pip deck, they're talking about one that's different than the RWS, where you have a full scene and someone is, there's a person or an animal or whatever doing something. And in a pip deck like this, the Pagan Otherworlds, there's 2 wands. They aren't arranged like they are in a Marseille deck, which we'll get to in a little bit. But then they do have like a little scene. So here you have like a castle in the background, and here you have boats. So in the RWS, you would have a man standing there. Where is it? Because I had it out. Yes, perfect. So in the RWS, you have a guy standing there, and he's got his 3 wands. They're even arranged in the same way, but there isn't a person. Let's see about the, so I have the 2 also. So here you have the 2 of wands. So you have some guys looking off, and here you have the 2 wands, again in the same arrangement. So there are clues in a pip deck for the most part, and it depends on the deck. But you don't have people and the minors for the most part. Maybe they're going to throw, like this one, they've got a horse here or a cow. I think it's a cow. It's hard to see from my angle. This is one of the first decks I got also. And I used it, but I had to lean heavily on the book because I still didn't have that association in my head about what the number meant. And there is the numerology, which I'm only just learning now, getting in my head. What does the number 9 mean? So what is 9 cups floating in the air? I had to go back, learn the RWS, and then I have a picture in my head of that. So it's a reference point. So this is a beautiful, beautiful deck. I do use it a lot. Some people, a lot of people feel like they got this deck, I think, and then because it's beautiful and then they didn't use it, and I edged mine gold, It's another thing. Everybody, you're going to see a lot of videos on people modding their decks. Don't feel like you have to. Anyway, there's a lot of people who are letting go of this deck because they don't use it. They don't. I do. I love this deck. Anyway, that's a Pip deck. So let's talk about Marseille. So Marseille is, they're also Pip decks, as it were. They're even less illustrated in the minors, and the elements in the minors are arranged in a specific pattern, which from Marseille deck to Marseille deck. This is the Morande Tarot. It's a Spanish deck. It's an independent deck. I don't like the color scheme for the most part. So this one has, this is on the front of this book. I'm sorry, I'm jumping around a lot. Has a deck by Robert M. Place. Again, he did the Sevenfold Mystery, Alchemical Tarot. I had the big book that I had. I like these colors and I like these pictures. This deck is expensive, so I don't get it, but let's see. You know, there's things like this, which I don't like the colors of. I don't, this one, this death is cool. The faces are just weird, which I get it because, yeah, the faces in this are weird. Anyway, I have a couple Marseille decks that are not what you would consider traditional Marseille decks. I have Marshmallow Marseille and Tarot Cyrene. But my point is that the arrangement of the elements and the cards is going to be the same across Marseille to Marseille for the most part. I think different artists may take different liberties with them, but the Six of Wands is going to look like this. Usually the swords are arranged. Yeah, so this one takes some liberties. The swords are going to be arranged differently. Let me find them in the book because swords. Where is it? Hold please. Pictures, please. Oh, dang. This only has... Okay, anyway, never mind. But that's a Marseille. So that's not going to be... Unless you like already know numerology, which I don't, this isn't going to mean a whole lot. It's just 6 swords. It could mean something when you get a better understanding of it. It will mean something, not good. And this is a great book for learning Marseille. And for learning any tarot, actually, because it has a lot of information on the numerology, which is useful for reading any deck. Oh, well, here, see? There they are. Okay, so here we go. So normally the swords are more curvy and arranged like this. This book also has some great info on some spreads and how to read tarot. I highly, highly recommend this book. It's easy to read. It's not too big. It's a great reference. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to talk about is how I, after all of that and all of that overwhelm and getting all of these different decks and different books and being overwhelmed by the Kabbalah and Egyptians and numerology and astrology, how did I ultimately learn? Well, yeah, I got the the RWS, this Centennial, and I used that as a reference point to learn. And then I had the Marielle. This is the Marielle right here. And I loved the art in this deck. It did something to my brain. It still does something to my brain. But there was images in here that I had a problem with. And so I wasn't using this deck because, and it's things I needed to work on, but I wasn't using it because of those things. So if I get out the book, and fair warning, nudity coming. So the Fool. Make sure that this is the Fool. Let's find the Fool. So the Fool, he's got his man part out. And yeah, I had some problems with that. I got some personal issues. And also it made me uncomfortable if I was going to be using this deck in front of certain people. My in-laws, my daughters, some of my friends. And I thought, well, I want to use this deck, and I want other people to see it. But there are cards in here that, this one, a lot of people struggle with this card and have to figure out how they make peace with it. I'll show you how I made peace with it. But I guess my point is not that this deck has specifically problematic cards. My greater point is that allowing myself, and this is a mass market deck, so, and it's $40-ish and it's easy to get. So I had an epiphany that if I wanted to use this deck, I can modify this deck in any way I want to make it a deck that I can use. So that's my point, is that all of a sudden I realized that I can do whatever I need to do to make this deck, she's not wearing a bikini in the real art, to make it so that I can use it and I can work with it, and maybe I can get past those things. She's not wearing a bikini either. Get past, also another bikini. Get past the things that make me uncomfortable. I'm trying to find the King of Discs, the problem guy, the arrogant problem guy. This is a beautiful deck, and I love it, and it does speak to me. I mean, there's no discs in this, but that doesn't matter to me in this deck, because there's something that clicks in my head when I use this deck. Where is he? So that set me free, I guess, is my point. Modifying this deck, making it be something that I can use, suddenly set me free, and set me on a different journey for, where is he? There he is. So yeah, he's wearing a little loincloth there. Still is kind of an arrogant jerk, but doesn't have his thing hanging out. Anyway, I've made peace with this card, and I'm going to buy a copy of this deck that isn't like this. I'm still going to keep this one so that I can use it comfortably in front of other people who would probably find that problematic. But that set me free to modify decks in a way that I could connect with them. So then I started edging decks, like I showed you with my Pagan Otherworlds. And that helps me connect with them. doing things that make it mine. So this is my Marielle, you know, this is my Marielle. My Marielle, right? So I am connected to this deck. I didn't do any weird rituals or anything other than modify it in a way that makes it mine. Then there was that that deck that I only had the box for called the Youth card, which I'm sorry I don't have images of, but I actually, getting this out here, love the backs of it. And as a way to study tarot, I started, I wanted to make my own deck. So I had found in a secondhand store artwork of birds. And so I cut them out and glued them to the front of these cards and made my own bird tarot. And in the process, I studied each card and what the meanings are for it, what it means to me. And so here we have the World. There's Justice, the Five of Wands, the Hermit. That's the Hanged Man. It's upside down. The Nine of Swords, the Three of Swords, the Tower. So I made a deck with birds, and I understand the meanings of these cards because I studied each one and found a piece of art that represents that for me. So that was the way I studied the tarot. That was the way I made the meanings of each card ingrained in my consciousness, as it were. And then I also, and I haven't completed this one yet. Sorry, things are falling over here. I started making collage art. So I just, these are Christmas cards. And I just, at the secondhand store found different magazines and children's books and all kinds of stuff. And this is the Fool. And made collage cards that are this magician. They're meaningful to me and help me understand the different symbols in it because I'm doing research and I'm like, okay, so there's pomegranates in the High Priestess. Why? What does that mean? Do I need that in mine? Is that going to be meaningful for me? The Empress, she's usually pregnant. But what did that pregnancy represent? Oh, well, it's fertility and abundance. So eggs mean the same thing for me. Why does she have Venus? What is the meaning of that? What's with the roses? The Emperor, why Mars? What is his deal? Why does he have, ram's heads on his throne? The Hierophant, the Lovers. And I had a ton of fun doing this. So this was another way that I learned tarot. There's the Hermit. I have made a hermit for my husband with Bigfoot because he loves Bigfoot, and this cracks me up. So, this is the way that I'm learning it because I study it. I reference books. I look at what are all the symbols on the cards? Do I want to incorporate those symbols? Are they meaningful to me? It's the Ace of Pentacles. It's the Three of Cups. That's how many I've made so far. So find your way. This was my way. Modifying the Marielle, realizing that that was the way that I was going to learn the meanings, was to actually hands-on work with it, not just read about it, but actually make pieces of art that represented those things. So, you know, maybe you draw, maybe you don't, maybe you write, maybe you journal, maybe you just read, maybe you watch videos, maybe you do what I did. Find the thing that works for you, and don't let anybody tell you what you must do, because the only thing you must do is find what works for you. So I know this was a long one, and I thank you for watching. I hope that this was helpful. I hope that somewhere in here you found something that is going to help you on your journey. So thanks for watching so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and comment below if you made it this far. I don't know. Leave a comment of any kind. You usually ask for some kind of emoji. I can't think of one that would even represent this video. So be kind to yourself and have a good tarot journey. Bye. It is July of 2022, and it is time for another deck giveaway. This time it is the Osho Zen Tarot. So this is a deck that I bought and really tried to connect with, so I didn't, I ran out of my Amazon return window. So it's not worth trying to sell, because it's, you know, it's mass market, it's not expensive. By the time, you know, I sell it for $5 and then the $10 shipping, it's just like, just what, why? So I'm gonna give it away. Lisa Pepez is the one who convinced me to get this, because she loves it. It was her first deck. But, and I, in theory, okay, it's black and white. In theory, I would like it because the artwork is pretty. The colors are pretty, but it's just not my jam. So there are plenty of walkthroughs. I'll go really fast. But there are plenty of walkthroughs of this deck if you want to go and see, is this a deck I would like to try to win for free. You can do that somewhere else. Probably Lisa Pepez at Supportive Tarot. I'm sure she has gushing walkthroughs, because I'm sure I watched them, and that's how I got convinced to get this deck. But like I said, it's just not my jam. So I'm not even going to show all the cards. That's pretty. See, that's pretty. That's pretty. But it just, you know, it doesn't ring my bell. So if you'd like to win it, you can comment below in this video with the word Zen and whatever else you want to say. And any video that I post in the month of July of 2022 that I have this at the end of, or where I mention the drawing somewhere and what keyword you should be entering in the comments, then you can enter as many times as you want, and each entry will get you another little piece of paper in my bowl, so it'll increase your chances. So thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and good luck.